The dust kicked up around Olivia Greene's worn boots as she stepped off the stagecoach in South Pass City, Wyoming Territory, on a scorching July afternoon in 1878, carrying nothing but a carpet bag and the kind of reputation that preceded a woman like wildfire across dry grass. She had hoped the whispers would not follow her this far west, but the moment she set foot on the wooden planks of the main street, she felt the eyes. Women pulled their children closer. Men looked at her with interest that made her stomach turn. Someone had already talked. Someone always talked. South Pass City had seen better days. The gold rush that built it in the 60s had faded, leaving behind a skeleton of what once was a booming town. Still, there were perhaps 300 souls clinging to life here, hoping for another strike, another chance. Olivia understood that feeling intimately. She walked past the mercantile, the saloon, the assay office, and the small hotel that would be her home until she could afford something more permanent. The July heat bore down mercilessly, and her dark dress absorbed every ray of sunlight. Sweat trickled down her back, but she kept her chin up and her eyes forward. She had learned long ago that showing weakness invited cruelty. The hotel clerk, a balding man with suspicious eyes, took her money but made her wait while he pretended to check his ledger. "We run a respectable establishment here," he finally said, his tone making it clear he doubted she belonged in such a place. "Then we will get along just fine," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. "I am a respectable woman looking for honest work." He handed her a key without another word, and she climbed the narrow stairs to a small room that overlooked the street. It was sparse but clean. A bed, a washstand, a single chair. She had lived in worse. She set down her bag and moved to the window, watching the town below as the afternoon shadows grew longer. Olivia was 22 years old, and her life had already been lived and judged by others. Back in Denver, she had been engaged to a banker's son, a man who promised her the world and then took what he wanted before the wedding. When she refused to be silent about his true nature after he abandoned her, his family made sure everyone knew she was ruined. Damaged goods. A woman of questionable virtue. The truth did not matter. It never did. She had run through her savings trying to survive in Denver, taking work where she could find it, but the whispers followed. Finally, she left, hoping South Pass City would be far enough away from her past. But somehow, the story had traveled faster than the stagecoach. That evening, she ventured out to find the restaurant she had spotted earlier. The dining room was half full, mostly men finishing their supper. She sat at a corner table, trying to make herself small, invisible. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, brought her a menu. "You just arrived today?" the woman asked. "Yes, madam. I am Dorothy. My husband and I run this place. You let me know if anyone bothers you hear." The kindness was so unexpected that Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." She ordered the cheapest meal and ate slowly, making it last. Tomorrow she would need to find work. She had some skills with sewing and had worked briefly as a school teacher before everything fell apart. Perhaps South Pass City needed one or the other. As she ate, she became aware of someone watching her. Not with the leering curiosity of the men at the bar, but with something else. She glanced up and found a man sitting 2 tables over, his hat resting on the chair beside him. He was perhaps 25, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of the Wyoming sky. When their gazes met, he did not look away, but neither did he make her feel uncomfortable. He simply nodded once, respectfully, and returned to his meal. Olivia finished eating and paid Dorothy, leaving what little she could spare as a tip. Back in her room, she lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling as the sounds of the town filtered through her window. A piano playing in the saloon, laughter, the occasional shout. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about how alone she was, how uncertain her future had become. The next morning, she woke with the sun and dressed carefully in her most modest dress, a gray cotton that had seen better days but was clean and mended. She pinned her auburn hair into a tight bun and studied herself in the small mirror above the washstand. She looked tired but determined. That would have to be enough. Her first stop was the schoolhouse, a small building at the edge of town. The door was unlocked, and inside she found a young man sweeping the floor. He looked up as she entered. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I am looking for the teacher. I heard there might be a position available." His expression shifted, becoming uncomfortable. "The position was filled last week." Teacher came in from Cheyenne. Olivia's heart sank, but she kept her voice level. "I see. Thank you for your time." She tried the mercantile next, hoping they might need help with inventory or sewing. The owner, a stern woman named Mrs. Patterson, looked her up and down with obvious disapproval. "I heard about you," Mrs. Patterson said. "Sarah Mitchell's cousin wrote from Denver, said you are trouble." "I am not trouble," Olivia replied, fighting to keep her composure. "I am a woman looking for honest work. Whatever you heard is not the truth. Where there is smoke, there is fire. I cannot have someone like you working in my establishment. What would people think?" Olivia left before the woman could say anything else that would break the fragile control she had over her emotions. She walked quickly, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. This was Denver all over again. This was her life now, moving from town to town, always one step ahead of the gossip but never quite fast enough. She found herself at the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open land and the mountains rose in the distance. The wind was cooler here, carrying the scent of sage and possibility. She stood there for a long time, trying to decide what to do next. She had enough money for perhaps 2 more weeks at the hotel if she was careful. After that, she did not know. "You look like someone who could use a friend." She spun around, startled. It was the man from the restaurant, the one with the sky-colored eyes. Up close, she could see he was tall and lean, with the weathered look of someone who spent his days outdoors. He wore typical cowboy attire, worn denim pants, a faded blue shirt, a bandana around his neck, and boots that had walked many miles. "I am fine," she said automatically, though it was obvious she was not. "Name is Dalton Douglas," he said, not moving closer but not leaving either. "I work on the cattle ranch about 5 miles north of here. Been in town picking up supplies." "I did not ask," Olivia said, more sharply than she intended. Then, because she was not naturally cruel, she added, "I am sorry. That was rude. I am Olivia Greene." "I know," he said simply. "Heard some talk. Figure most of it is probably lies." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. "Why would you think that?" "Because I have lived long enough to know that people prefer a good story to the truth, and women always get the worst of it." He adjusted his hat, shading his eyes from the morning sun. "Also saw how you carried yourself yesterday. You have got the look of someone who has been through something hard but came out the other side still standing. That takes character." Olivia did not know what to say. No one had spoken to her with such straightforward kindness in months. She felt her defenses wavering, which terrified her. She could not afford to trust anyone, especially not a man. "I should go," she said, starting to walk past him. "If you are looking for work," Dalton called after her, "my sister runs a laundry service. She mentioned yesterday that she could use help. Pay is not much, but it is honest work, and Ruth does not listen to gossip. She makes up her own mind about people." Olivia stopped and turned back. "Why would you help me?" he shrugged, a slight smile touching his lips. "Why would I not?" She studied him for a long moment, looking for the angle, the hidden motive. But his expression remained open, genuine. "Where would I find your sister?" "Little house with the blue shutters on the east side of town. Cannot miss it. Clothes lines in the yard. Tell her I sent you." "Thank you," Olivia said, and she meant it. "You are welcome, Miss Greene." He tipped his hat and walked back toward town, leaving her standing there wondering what had just happened. She found the house easily. Ruth Douglas turned out to be a woman in her early 30s with her brother's same blue eyes but auburn hair streaked with early gray. She was hanging sheets when Olivia approached, and she looked up with a friendly smile. "Can I help you?" "Your brother Dalton said you might be looking for help with the laundry," Olivia said, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "My name is Olivia Greene, and I am a hard worker. I know some people in town have been saying things about me, but I promise you, I am honest and reliable." Ruth studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Come inside. Let us talk." The interior of the house was simple but welcoming, with lace curtains and wildflowers in a jar on the kitchen table. Ruth poured them both water and sat down across from Olivia. "I am not going to pretend I have not heard the gossip," Ruth said bluntly. "But I also know that gossip is usually wrong, especially when it is about a woman. So why do not you tell me your story, the real one, and I will decide for myself?" Olivia took a deep breath and began. She told Ruth everything. About the banker's son who had promised marriage and then disappeared, about speaking up when she should have stayed silent, about the way his family had destroyed her reputation to protect his. She talked about losing her job, her savings, her home. About running to South Pass City hoping for a fresh start. When she finished, Ruth was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and squeezed Olivia's hand. "I am sorry that happened to you. Men like that should face consequences, but they rarely do. And women like you pay the price for their sins. So you believe me?" "I do. And even if I did not, I still would not turn you away. Everyone deserves a chance to start over." Ruth sat back. "The work is hard. We do laundry for most of the boarding houses and some of the wealthier families. It is hot. Your hands will get raw and the pay is 50 cents a day. But you will be treated with respect and no one will bother you here." "When can I start?" Ruth smiled. "How about right now? I have got 3 loads that need doing." Olivia worked harder that day than she had in months, and it felt good. The physical labor kept her mind from wandering to dark places, and Ruth was easy to work alongside, chatting about the town and its inhabitants without malice. By the end of the day, Olivia's back ached and her hands were red from the hot water and soap, but she felt something she had not felt in a long time: useful. "You did well today," Ruth said as they hung the last of the laundry. "Same time tomorrow. I will be here." Walking back to the hotel that evening, Olivia felt lighter. She had work, which meant she could stay in South Pass City at least for a while. She had found one person who believed her, which meant maybe there were others. It was not much, but it was a beginning. She was passing the general store when she heard raised voices. A group of women stood outside, and as Olivia approached, she realized they were talking about her. "Shameful, that is what it is," one woman said loudly. "Coming here pretending to be decent." "I heard she was a prostitute in Denver," another added. "Now Ruth Douglas has hired her. What is that woman thinking?" Olivia kept walking, her face burning, but one of the women stepped into her path. It was Mrs. Patterson from the Mercantile. "You have got some nerve showing your face around respectable people," Mrs. Patterson said. "I have every right to be here," Olivia replied, her voice shaking but firm. "I have done nothing wrong." "That is not what I heard." "Then you heard lies. Ladies, there's a problem here." Dalton had appeared, seemingly from nowhere. He stood beside Olivia, not touching her but close enough that his presence was clearly protective. Mrs. Patterson's expression soured further. "This does not concern you, Mr. Douglas." "I disagree. Miss Greene is a friend, and I do not take kindly to friends being harassed on the street." "You are keeping company with her?" one of the other women asked, scandalized. "Does your sister know?" "My sister is the one who hired her," Dalton said calmly. "Miss Greene is working honestly, which is more than I can say for people who spend their days spreading gossip instead of minding their own affairs." The women huffed and muttered but moved aside. Dalton gently touched Olivia's elbow, guiding her away from the group. They walked in silence until they were out of earshot. "You did not have to do that," Olivia said. "I know. They will talk about you now too. Let them. I do not care much what people think." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Why are you being kind to me? You do not know me." Dalton looked at her with those steady blue eyes. "Maybe I would like to." Her heart did something unexpected in her chest, a flutter that was equal parts hope and fear. "I am not looking for a man to rescue me." "Good, because I am not offering to rescue you." "Seems to me you are doing fine rescuing yourself. I am just offering friendship if you want it." "I do not understand you." He smiled then, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You are not the first person to say that. Look, Miss Greene, I have lived 25 years, and I have seen enough of the world to know that most people are quick to judge and slow to understand. I also know that the people worth knowing are usually the ones the town gossips about. So yes, I am being kind to you because I think you deserve kindness. Nothing more complicated than that." Olivia did not know what to say. She had been defensive for so long, armored against the world, that simple kindness felt like a foreign language. "Thank you," she finally managed. "You are welcome. Can I walk you back to your hotel?" She nodded, and they continued down the street together. People stared, and Olivia knew this would be all over town by morning, but for once she did not care. Dalton talked easily as they walked, telling her about the ranch where he worked, about growing up in Wyoming Territory, about his sister raising him after their parents died. "Ruth is only 7 years older than me, but she became mother and father both when I was 12, he explained. "Taught me everything I know about being decent, about treating people right. She seems like a good person, the best. Stubborn as a mule, though. Once she makes up her mind about someone, that is it. If she has decided you are worth helping, nothing anyone says will change her opinion." They reached the hotel and Dalton tipped his hat. "Have a good evening, Miss Greene." "Olivia," she said. "If we are going to be friends, you should call me Olivia." His smile returned. "Olivia, then, and you can call me Dalton." She watched him walk away, his long stride confident and unhurried, and she felt something shift inside her. Not romance, not yet, but the possibility of it, like the first green shoots after a long winter. The days fell into a rhythm. Olivia worked with Ruth 6 days a week, and slowly, painfully, she began to feel like she was building something. Not much, but something. Ruth paid her fairly and often invited her to stay for supper, where they would sit at the kitchen table and talk about everything and nothing. Dalton came by often, usually with some excuse about checking on his sister, but Olivia noticed that he always seemed to time his visits for when she was there. They would sit on Ruth's porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains, and talk. He told her about horses and cattle, about the open range and the changing seasons. She told him about books she had read, about wanting to be a teacher, about the dreams she had before everything fell apart. "You could still be a teacher," Dalton said one evening in late August. "Maybe not here, but somewhere." "Maybe," Olivia said, though she did not quite believe it. "Right now I am just trying to get through each day." "You are doing more than that. You are thriving." She looked at him, surprised. I am doing laundry for 50 cents a day and living in a rented room. That is hardly thriving. You are surviving despite everything that has been thrown at you. You are working honestly, holding your head up, not letting the gossips win. That is thriving, Olivia. She felt tears prick her eyes and looked away quickly, not wanting him to see. But he had already seen. He reached over and gently took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. You are stronger than you think, he said quietly. I do not feel strong. Strength is not about never being afraid or hurt. It is about keeping going anyway. They sat there in the gathering dusk, hands linked, and Olivia felt something bloom in her chest. Something she had thought was dead. Hope, maybe, or something even more dangerous. The beginning of love. September arrived with cooler temperatures and changing leaves. Olivia had been in South Pass City for 2 months, and while the gossip had not completely died down, it had lessened. People were growing used to seeing her around town. Some still crossed the street to avoid her, but others had begun to nod in greeting. Small victories. Ruth had increased her pay to 75 cents a day, insisting that Olivia's work was worth more. You are the best help I have ever had, Ruth said. Fast, thorough, and you actually show up when you say you will. That is worth something. The extra money meant Olivia could save a little each week. Not much, but enough that she was starting to think about maybe renting a small house, something more permanent than the hotel. It felt dangerous to plan for the future, to believe she might actually be allowed to stay. Dalton had become a fixture in her life. He came to town at least twice a week, always making sure to stop by Ruth's house. Sometimes he brought small gifts, wildflowers, a book he thought she might like, a jar of honey from a farm down the valley. Nothing inappropriate or expensive, just thoughtful gestures that showed he was thinking of her. You are courting her, Ruth said to him one afternoon when Olivia had gone to fetch water from the well. I know, Dalton replied. She has been through a lot. I know that too. Ruth studied her brother carefully. You really care about her, do not you? I do. More than I probably should, given we have only known each other a couple months. He looked at Ruth seriously. She is different, Ruth. She is smart and strong and kind despite everything that has happened to her. When I am with her, everything just feels right. Have you told her how you feel? Not in so many words. I am trying to go slow, let her set the pace. She does not trust easily, and I do not blame her. Just do not wait too long, Ruth advised. Life is too short to leave things unsaid. That evening, after work, Dalton asked Olivia if she would like to go for a walk. They headed out of town, following a trail that led up into the hills. The autumn air was crisp and cool, and the aspens were turning gold. I love this time of year, Dalton said as they walked. Everything is changing, getting ready for winter. It is like the world is taking a deep breath before the cold comes. It is beautiful, Olivia agreed. So different from Denver, I did not realize how much I missed open spaces until I came here. They reached a spot where the trail widened into a small clearing, offering a view of the valley below and the mountains beyond. Dalton led her to a flat rock where they could sit. I wanted to talk to you about something, he said, his voice more serious than usual. Olivia's stomach tightened with anxiety. What is it? Nothing bad, he said quickly, seeing her expression. At least I hope it is not bad. I just wanted to be honest with you about my feelings. Her heart started racing. Dalton, you do not have to. I do, actually. Because if I do not say this now, I might lose my nerve. He turned to face her fully. Olivia, these past 2 months have been the best I have had in a long time. Getting to know you, spending time with you, it has been everything. And I know you have been hurt, and I know you have reasons not to trust, especially men. But I need you to know that I care about you, deeply. And if you would let me, I would like to court you properly. Olivia stared at him, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to leap at this chance for happiness. But another part, the part that had been wounded and betrayed, whispered warnings. "I am scared," she admitted. "I know. What if people talk? What if your reputation is damaged by associating with me?" "I do not care about that. What if I am not who you think I am? What if I am as damaged as everyone says?" Dalton reached out and gently cupped her face with his hand. "Olivia, listen to me. You are not damaged. You were hurt by someone who should have protected you, and then hurt again by people who should have supported you. That does not make you damaged. That makes you a survivor. And what I see when I look at you is not what the town gossips say. I see a beautiful, strong woman who deserves to be happy. I see someone worth fighting for." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You called me beautiful, because you are, inside and out. The town calls me damaged goods. Then the town is wrong, and I will spend every day proving it if you give me the chance." Olivia closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. She thought about the past 2 months, about how different Dalton was from the man who had ruined her. He had never pressed her, never made her feel uncomfortable, never demanded anything from her. He had simply been present, steady, kind. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." She opened her eyes and looked at him through her tears. "Yes, you can court me. I am still scared, but I am tired of letting fear make all my decisions. You make me feel like maybe I deserve good things, like maybe my life is not over." Dalton's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen from him. "Your life is not over, Olivia. It is just beginning." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and kissed her softly. It was gentle and sweet, nothing like the demanding, possessive kisses she had endured before. This was a kiss that asked rather than took, that promised rather than demanded. When they pulled apart, Olivia was smiling too, the first real smile she had felt in months. "We should probably head back before dark," Dalton said, standing and offering her his hand. She took it, and they walked back down the trail hand in hand. When they reached town, people definitely noticed. Mrs. Patterson actually stopped in her tracks, her mouth falling open. Two women talking outside the saloon immediately began whispering. But Olivia kept her head up, her hand firmly in Dalton's. Let them talk. For the first time since arriving in South Pass City, she did not care. The next few weeks passed in a blur of happiness that Olivia had almost forgotten was possible. Dalton came to town every chance he got, and they spent their evenings together, talking and laughing and slowly building something real. He was patient with her fears, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. Ruth was delighted with the development. "I have not seen my brother this happy in years," she told Olivia. "You are good for him." "He is good for me too," Olivia replied. "I did not think I could feel this way again. Love has a way of finding us when we least expect it." Love. The word made Olivia's heart skip. She had not let herself think that far ahead. Ruth gave her a knowing look. "You do not get that look on your face when someone mentions his name unless it is love, dear. And he has been in love with you since the day he met you, even if it took him a while to realize it." October brought the first snow, a light dusting that melted by noon but signaled the coming winter. Dalton showed up at Ruth's house one Saturday morning with a wagon. "I need to head up to the high country to check on some stray cattle," he told Olivia. "Thought you might like to come along. Ruth said she can spare you for the day." "I would love to," Olivia said, grabbing her warmest shawl. They drove out of town as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning frost. The landscape was stunning, all gold and brown and the deep green of the pines. Dalton kept up a running commentary about the land, the ranch, the cattle business. Olivia loved listening to him talk, loved the way his face lit up when he discussed things he cared about. They found the stray cattle in a high meadow and spent an hour gently herding them back toward lower ground. Then Dalton spread a blanket on the grass and they shared the lunch Ruth had packed: fresh bread, cheese, apples, and cold chicken. "Can I ask you something?" Olivia said as they ate. "Anything." "Why cattle? Why ranching? You are smart enough to do anything." Dalton looked out over the landscape, considering. "I like the freedom of it, I suppose. I like working outside with animals, with the land. I like that it is honest work, that at the end of the day I can see what I have accomplished. And I guess I like that it is just me and the cattle and the sky, no one telling me who to be or how to think." "That sounds nice," Olivia said wistfully. "What would you do if you could do anything?" Dalton asked. "I think I would still want to teach," Olivia said slowly. "I love books, love learning, love the idea of helping children discover the world. But I think that dream died back in Denver. Dreams do not die unless you let them. Some dreams are not practical." Dalton turned to look at her. "What if I told you the ranch owner has been talking about starting a school for the ranch families? There are about a dozen children out there who are growing up without any education. He has been trying to find a teacher but has not had any luck. Everyone wants to stay in town." Olivia's heart leaped. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. It would not pay much, maybe $1 a day plus room and board, but it would be teaching. Would you be interested?" "I would be very interested. But would your boss hire me given my reputation? Sam Garrett is a good man. He cares about whether someone can do the job, not what gossips say. If you are willing, I could arrange for you to meet him." "I am willing," Olivia said immediately. Then, more cautiously, "But what about Ruth? I do not want to leave her without help. Ruth will understand. She only hired you because you needed work. She would be happy to see you doing something that makes you happy." They talked about it more as they finished lunch and began the drive back to town. Olivia felt excitement building in her chest, that dangerous feeling of hope returning. Maybe she could teach again. Maybe she could have a purpose beyond just surviving. When Dalton dropped her off at Ruth's house that evening, he caught her hand before she could climb down from the wagon. "I love you, Olivia," he said, the words simple and clear. "I've been trying to find the right time to say it, but I realized there is no right time. I just love you and I wanted you to know." Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. "I love you too," she said. "I think I have for a while now, but I was afraid to admit it, afraid it would disappear if I said it out loud." "It is not going anywhere," Dalton promised. "I am not going anywhere." He kissed her then, right there on the street where anyone could see, and Olivia kissed him back, not caring who was watching. This was her life, her choice, her happiness. No one could take it from her. The meeting with Sam Garrett happened the following week. He was a weathered man in his 50s with a firm handshake and direct eyes. They met in the ranch office and Dalton introduced them. "Dalton tells me you used to be a teacher," Sam said, gesturing for Olivia to sit. "I was, yes, sir, for about a year in Denver before I lost my position." "Why did you lose it?" Olivia took a deep breath. She had learned that the truth, while painful, was always better than a lie. "My reputation was damaged by circumstances beyond my control. The school board felt I was no longer a suitable role model for children." Sam leaned back in his chair. "I heard some of the talk about you. Dalton here speaks highly of you, and I trust his judgment, but I need to know if there is any truth to what people say. I was engaged to a man who broke his promise and abandoned me after taking liberties he should not have. When I tried to tell people what he had done, his family destroyed my reputation to protect him. That is the truth. I have done nothing wrong, but I have paid the price anyway." Sam was quiet for a moment. "That is a raw deal, Miss Greene. Seems like the world is harder on women than it has any right to be." He picked up a paper from his desk. These here are letters of recommendation from your previous teaching position. Dalton got them for me. They speak very highly of your skills." Olivia looked at Dalton in surprise. He had not mentioned that he had contacted her old school. "The way I see it," Sam continued, "what matters is whether you can teach children to read and write and do their numbers. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir, I can." "Then the job is yours if you want it. $1 a day, 6 days a week. You would live in the bunkhouse we have set aside for the teacher. It is small but private. Meals in the main house with the family. You would teach Monday through Saturday, 10 children ranging in age from 6 to 14. Does that sound agreeable?" "It sounds wonderful," Olivia said, hardly able to believe this was happening. "When would you like me to start?" "Beginning of November. That gives you time to give notice to Ruth and get your things together." They shook hands, and Olivia left the office feeling like she was walking on air. Dalton was waiting outside, leaning against the fence. "You got it?" he asked, though the look on her face probably told him everything. "I got it," she confirmed. "Dalton, you got my letters of recommendation. How?" "Wrote to your old school, explained the situation, asked them to send anything they had. Figured it might help." "You did that for me." "Of course I did. I love you, Olivia. I want to see you happy." She threw her arms around him, not caring that ranch hands were watching. "Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did." He held her close. "You made it easy." Telling Ruth about the job was bittersweet. Ruth was genuinely happy for her but admitted she would miss having her around every day. "You have been like a sister to me," Ruth said. "But you deserve to use your education to do something that fulfills you. The ranch is not far. We will still see each other plenty." "I am going to miss working with you," Olivia said. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. I will never forget that. You would have found your way regardless. You are that kind of person." Olivia spent the last week of October preparing to move to the ranch. She had acquired a few more dresses, some books, and other small necessities. On her last day at the hotel, the clerk who had been so suspicious when she arrived actually wished her well. "Heard you are going to teach the ranch children," he said. "That is good. They need someone." It was a small thing, but it felt like a victory. Dalton came with a wagon on the 1st of November to transport her belongings. The ride out to the ranch took about an hour, and Olivia spent it taking in the landscape. Rolling hills, scattered pines, and in the distance, mountains that seemed to touch the sky. It was beautiful and wild and free. The ranch was larger than she had expected. There was the main house, several barns, corrals, and various outbuildings. Her quarters turned out to be a small cabin near the main house, recently renovated. It had a bedroom, a sitting area, and even a small stove for cooking, though she would take most of her meals with the family. "This is mine?" Olivia asked, looking around the space. "All yours," Dalton confirmed. "Sam wanted you to have privacy, figured a lady teacher needed her own space." "It is perfect." They spent the afternoon getting her settled. Dalton hung curtains she had sewn, arranged furniture, and made sure everything was comfortable. When they were finished, they sat on the small porch, watching the sun set. "I cannot believe this is my life now," Olivia said. 3 months ago, I was convinced my life was over. And now I am here with a job I love and a man I love, and everything feels possible again. "It is possible," Dalton said. "You made it possible." "We made it possible," she corrected. "I could not have done this without you." He took her hand. "Olivia, I know it is probably too soon and you can say no if you want, but I need to ask you something." Her heart started pounding. "What is it?" "Would you consider marrying me? Not right away if you are not ready, but someday, when you are ready. I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something real, something lasting, you and me together." Olivia felt joy surge through her, so intense it was almost painful. "Yes," she said. Yes, I will marry you, not someday. Soon. I am ready, Dalton. I am ready to start my life again, and I want to start it with you. He pulled her close and kissed her, and she kissed him back with all the hope and love and gratitude that filled her heart. They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Ruth stood as Olivia's witness, and Sam Garrett stood for Dalton. About 20 people attended, mostly ranch families. No one from town except Ruth came, but Olivia did not care. The people who mattered were there. She wore a simple dress of cream-colored cotton that Ruth had helped her sew, and she carried wildflowers that Dalton had picked that morning. When Sam, who was also the justice of the peace for that district, pronounced them husband and wife, Olivia felt a happiness so complete it brought tears to her eyes. "I love you, Mrs. Douglas," Dalton said, wiping away her tears. "I love you too," she replied. They had a small celebration afterward, with food and music and dancing. The ranch families welcomed Olivia warmly, and several of the mothers thanked her for agreeing to teach their children. By evening, Olivia was exhausted but happier than she could remember being in years. Dalton had spent the past weeks building an addition onto his small cabin on the ranch property, making it suitable for a married couple. It was modest but cozy, with a bedroom, a kitchen, and a sitting room. When he carried her over the threshold that night, Olivia looked around at what was now their home. "It is perfect," she said. "You are perfect," Dalton replied. That night, as they lay together for the first time as husband and wife, Olivia felt the last of her old wounds begin to heal. Dalton was gentle and patient, treating her like she was precious. This was what love was supposed to be, she realized. Not taking, but giving. Not possessing, but partnering. Afterward, lying in his arms, she traced patterns on his chest. "The town called me damaged goods," she said quietly. "I know. But you called me beautiful, and you meant every word. I did mean it. I still do. You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, Olivia, inside and out." She lifted her head to look at him. "I used to think my life was ruined. That one mistake, one wrong choice had destroyed everything. It was not your mistake or your choice. It was done to you. I know that now, but for so long I believed what people said about me, that I was damaged, ruined, worthless." Dalton cupped her face gently. "You are none of those things. You are strong and brave and resilient. You survived something that would have broken a lesser person. And you came out the other side with your kindness and your hope intact. That is not damaged, Olivia. That is extraordinary." She kissed him then, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "Thank you for seeing me, the real me. Thank you for letting me." Teaching the ranch children turned out to be everything Olivia had hoped for and more. The children were eager to learn, and their parents were supportive and appreciative. She taught reading and writing and arithmetic, but also history and science and anything else she could find books about. The schoolhouse was just a converted barn, but to Olivia it was a palace. Dalton would often stop by during the day, ostensibly to check on something, but really just to see her. The children quickly figured out that the cowboy who kept making excuses to visit was Miss Olivia's husband, and they would giggle whenever he appeared. "Your husband is here again," one of the older girls would whisper, and Olivia would try to hide her smile and fail completely. Winter came hard and fast, with deep snows that sometimes made travel impossible. But the ranch was prepared, with plenty of supplies and livestock brought down to lower pastures. Olivia and Dalton spent their evenings by the fire, reading and talking and simply being together. It was a quiet happiness, but it was real. Ruth visited when the weather allowed, and Olivia made the trip into town occasionally. The gossip had not completely died down, but it had faded significantly. Some people still crossed the street to avoid her, but others had begun to accept her presence. Mrs. Patterson even nodded to her once, which Olivia considered a major victory. "People will always talk," Ruth said during one visit. "But eventually they find something new to talk about. You are old news now." "Good," Olivia replied. "I prefer being boring." Christmas came, and Olivia helped organize a celebration for the ranch families. They gathered in the main house, and there was food and singing and a small gift for each child. Watching the children's faces light up, seeing the families laugh and celebrate together, Olivia felt a contentment she had never known before. "Happy?" Dalton asked, slipping his arm around her waist. "Incredibly happy," she confirmed. "Good, because I have something for you." He led her outside where the snow was falling softly. In the barn, he showed her a beautiful roan mare. "She is yours," Dalton said. "I have been training her for months. Figured you should have your own horse so you can ride out whenever you want." "Dalton, she is beautiful." "But this is too much." "Nothing is too much for you. Besides, I am being selfish. Now we can ride together." Olivia threw her arms around him. "Thank you for everything, for giving me a life I never thought I could have." "You gave it to yourself," he said. "I just had the good sense to love you." The new year of 1879 arrived with clear skies and bitter cold. Olivia continued teaching, and she and Dalton settled into married life. They had their disagreements, as all couples do, but they learned to talk through problems rather than letting them fester. In February, Olivia began feeling ill in the mornings. At first, she thought it was something she ate, but when it continued for over a week, Ruth pulled her aside. "Olivia, honey, I think you might be pregnant." The word hung in the air between them. Pregnant. A baby. Olivia's hand went to her stomach automatically. "I had not even thought," she said. "But I suppose it is possible, likely even." "How do you feel about it?" Ruth asked carefully. "Scared," Olivia admitted. "But also happy, excited. Is that normal?" Ruth laughed. "Completely normal." "Have you told Dalton?" "Not yet. I wanted to be sure first." But that evening, as they prepared for bed, Olivia could not keep the secret. "I think I might be pregnant," she blurted out. Dalton froze in the act of pulling off his boots. "Pregnant? As in a baby?" "That is generally what it means, yes." He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy about it?" Olivia asked, suddenly uncertain. "Happy? Olivia, I am over the moon. We are going to be parents. You are going to be a mother." He pulled back to look at her face. "Are you happy?" "I am," she said, and realized it was true. "I am terrified, but I am happy." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Olivia continued teaching through the spring, though she had to sit down more often as she grew larger. The ranch families were excited about the baby, and the children constantly asked questions about when it would arrive and whether it would be a boy or girl. Dalton became almost comically protective, insisting she not lift anything heavy or work too hard. Ruth teased him mercilessly about it. "She is pregnant, not made of glass," Ruth told her brother. "I know, but I just want to make sure she is safe," Dalton replied. "She is safe. Stop hovering." But Olivia secretly loved his attention, the way he worried over her, the way he would place his hand on her growing belly and talk to the baby. He was going to be a wonderful father. In early September, as the leaves were just beginning to turn, Olivia went into labor. It was long and difficult, and there were moments when she was convinced she would not survive. But Dalton was there the whole time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, telling her how strong she was. Ruth assisted with the birth, having delivered many babies in her years. When the baby finally arrived in the early hours of the morning, its cry filling the cabin, Ruth announced, "It is a boy, a healthy baby boy." She placed the infant in Olivia's arms, and Olivia looked down at her son through tears of joy and exhaustion. He had a full head of dark hair and his father's eyes. He was perfect. "What should we name him?" Olivia asked Dalton, who was staring at his son with wonder. "What about James, after my father?" Dalton suggested. "James Douglas," Olivia said, trying it out. "I like it. Hello, James." "Welcome to the world." Dalton leaned down and kissed both of them. "I love you," he said. "Both of you, so much." The first months of parenthood were exhausting but joyful. James was a good baby, healthy and alert. Olivia took a break from teaching for a few months to focus on him. But by the new year she was back in the schoolhouse, bringing James with her. The children loved having a baby in the classroom, and the older girls competed to help care for him. Life settled into a new rhythm. Dalton worked the ranch, Olivia taught, and together they raised their son. It was not always easy. Money was sometimes tight, winters were hard, and there were moments of struggle. But they faced everything together, and that made all the difference. 2 years later, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah. Then, 3 years after that, another son they called Thomas. Their little cabin became cramped with 3 children, so Dalton built an addition, adding 2 more bedrooms. The years passed quickly. Olivia watched her children grow, taught dozens of ranch children to read and write, and built a life she was proud of. The gossip that had once defined her had faded into distant memory. She was no longer the scandalous woman from Denver. She was Mrs. Douglas, the ranch teacher, Dalton's wife, mother to 3 beautiful children. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Dalton took her back to the spot where he had first told her he loved her. The aspen trees were gold with autumn leaves, just like that first time. "You remember this place?" he asked. "Of course. This is where you asked to court me, where you told me I was not damaged." "You never were," he said, "but I do not think you believed me back then." "I believe you now," Olivia said. "It took me a long time to see myself the way you saw me, but I finally do. I am not what that town said I was. I am not what one cruel man tried to make me. I am exactly who I was always meant to be." "And who is that?" "A teacher, a wife, a mother, a woman who survived and thrived, a woman who is loved." Dalton pulled her close. "You are all of those things and more. You are my whole world, Olivia. And you are mine." They stood there in the golden afternoon, holding each other, and Olivia thought about how far she had come. From that dusty day when she stepped off the stagecoach, broken and afraid, to this moment of complete happiness. The journey had not been easy, but it had been worth it. The town had called her damaged goods. But one cowboy had called her beautiful and meant every word. And in doing so, he had helped her see the truth. She was never damaged at all. She was simply a woman who had been hurt, who had survived, and who had found the courage to love again. That evening they returned to the ranch as the sun was setting. Their children ran out to greet them, James now 12 and already tall like his father, Sarah at 10 with her mother's auburn hair, and Thomas at 7, full of energy and questions. "Where did you go?" Sarah asked. "Just for a ride," Olivia said, hugging her daughter. "Sometimes your father and I need time alone to remember why we fell in love." "That is silly," Thomas declared. "You are married. You are supposed to love each other." "You are right," Dalton said, ruffling his son's hair, "but it is still nice to remember anyway." They went inside, and Olivia made dinner while Dalton helped the children with their homework. After they ate, they sat together in the sitting room. Dalton read to the younger children while James worked on a carving he was making. Olivia sat in her chair, mending clothes and watching her family. This was happiness, she thought. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of love. Not perfection, but purpose. Not forgetting the past, but not letting it define the future either. Later, after the children were in bed, Olivia and Dalton sat on their porch, wrapped in blankets against the cool night air. The stars were brilliant overhead, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called. "You ever think about that first day?" Olivia asked. "When I arrived in South Pass City?" "Sometimes," Dalton admitted. "I think about seeing you in the restaurant, how even though you looked exhausted and scared, you held your head up. I thought you were the bravest person I had ever seen." "I did not feel brave. Bravery is not about feeling fearless. It is about being afraid and doing it anyway. You were so brave, Olivia, you still are." "I had to be, but it helped having you believe in me. On days when I did not believe in myself, I could borrow your faith. You never needed to borrow it, it was always yours." Olivia leaned against him, listening to his heartbeat, steady and sure. "I love you, Dalton Douglas. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself. Thank you for calling me beautiful when the world called me damaged. Thank you for meaning every word." "I still mean every word," he said. "You are beautiful. You always have been and you always will be. Not just your face, though that is lovely too, but your heart, your spirit, your strength. That is what I fell in love with, and that is what I will love for the rest of my life." They sat there in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Inside, their children slept peacefully. Tomorrow, Olivia would teach her students, Dalton would work the cattle, and together they would continue building the life they had created. There would be challenges ahead, as there always were, but they would face them together, as they had faced everything else. Olivia thought about the girl she had been, stepping off that stagecoach with nothing but a carpetbag and a tattered reputation. She had been so lost, so convinced her life was over. She could not have imagined then that happiness was waiting just around the corner, in the form of a cowboy with kind eyes and a sister who took chances on strangers. She thought about all the people who had judged her, who had whispered behind their hands and crossed the street to avoid her. Some of them had eventually changed their minds. Others never did, but it did not matter anymore. Their opinions had no power over her life, her happiness, or her sense of self-worth. The scars were still there. She suspected they always would be, but they had faded from open wounds to thin white lines, marks of survival rather than damage. She had learned that being hurt did not make her broken, and needing time to heal did not make her weak. She had learned that love was not about one person saving another, but about two people choosing to walk through life together, supporting each other when times were hard and celebrating together when they were good. Most importantly, she had learned to see herself through Dalton's eyes. Not damaged, not ruined, not worthless, but beautiful, worthy, whole. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and sage. Olivia breathed it in deeply, feeling grateful for every moment that had led her to this place, even the painful ones. They had shaped her, strengthened her, made her who she was, and who she was, she had finally learned was enough. "We should go inside," Dalton said eventually. "It is getting cold." "Just a few more minutes," Olivia replied. "I want to remember this moment." "Why this moment in particular?" "Because I am perfectly happy. Right here, right now with you. Our children are safe and healthy inside. We have work we love, a home we built together, and a future full of possibilities. This is everything I ever wanted and more than I ever thought I could have. I just want to remember it." Dalton kissed the top of her head. "I will help you remember. We will remember together." They stayed outside a little longer, holding each other under the vast Wyoming sky. When they finally went inside, Olivia checked on each of her children, pulling blankets up, smoothing hair, whispering quiet blessings. Then she climbed into bed beside her husband and he pulled her close. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," he replied. "Always have, always will." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved and home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new moments to treasure. But tonight, she simply rested, grateful beyond words for the life she had built from the ashes of her past. The town had called her damaged goods, but one cowboy had called her beautiful and meant every word. And in the end, his words had been the truth, while theirs had been nothing but lies carried away on the wind. She was not damaged. She had never been damaged. She was simply Olivia Douglas, teacher, wife, mother, survivor, and most importantly, a woman who had learned to love herself as fiercely as she was loved by others. And that, she thought as sleep finally claimed her, was the best kind of happy ending there was. Years continued to pass at the ranch, each season bringing its own rhythms and challenges. The children grew, as children do. James became an excellent horseman and often rode out with his father to work the cattle. Sarah showed a talent for teaching and would often help her mother in the schoolhouse. Thomas was the adventurous one, always exploring, always asking questions, always finding new ways to test his parents' patience and make them laugh. When James turned 15, he started courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a sweet girl named Elizabeth who often joined the family for Sunday dinners. Watching her son navigate the early stages of romance, Olivia felt a mixture of pride and protectiveness. "He is so young," she said to Dalton one evening. "He is older than you were when your life fell apart," Dalton pointed out gently. "And we have raised him differently. He knows how to treat people with respect. He will be fine. I know, I just worry." That is what parents do. Olivia had maintained her teaching position, though the schoolhouse had been rebuilt and expanded as more families settled in the area. She now had nearly 20 students, ranging from 5 to 16 years old. The work was challenging but deeply rewarding. Several of her former students had gone on to college back east, which filled her with pride. Her reputation, once so tarnished, had been completely rebuilt. She was known throughout the region as an excellent teacher, a devoted wife and mother, and a valuable member of the community. When South Pass City needed someone to organize a library, they asked her. When the Territorial Education Board needed representatives, she was nominated. The woman who had once been called damaged goods was now one of the most respected women in the area. Sometimes, late at night, she would think about the banker's son who had ruined her reputation back in Denver. She had heard through Ruth, who still maintained some connections there, that he had married well and gone into politics. He had faced no consequences for what he had done to her, no justice for his actions. For a long time, that knowledge had burned inside her like acid, but eventually she had made peace with it. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. She had built a life so much better than anything she could have had with him. She had found real love, real partnership, real happiness. In a way, his betrayal had set her free to find what she was truly meant for. "You ever think about what your life would have been like if you had married that man?" Dalton asked her once, as if reading her mind. "Sometimes," Olivia admitted. "I would have been miserable, I know that now. He did not love me, not really. He just wanted to possess me, and his family would have made my life a prison. Do you forgive him?" "I do not know if I forgive him for what he did, but I have forgiven myself for believing him, for trusting him." That was the harder thing, learning to forgive myself. You were young. I was, and I deserved better than how I was treated both by him and by everyone who blamed me for his actions. "You got better," Dalton said, taking her hand. "You got me," she laughed. "Your humility is showing." "I am serious. Maybe I did not give you everything you deserved, but I tried, and you gave me everything. A family, a purpose, a reason to be better than I was. We gave those things to each other," Olivia corrected. On their 15th wedding anniversary, the community threw them a celebration at the ranch. Nearly 100 people attended, including families from town and surrounding ranches. Even some of the women who had once gossiped about Olivia were there, older now and seemingly embarrassed about their past behavior. Mrs. Patterson, the mercantile owner who had once refused to hire her, approached Olivia during the party. "I owe you an apology," the older woman said stiffly. "I was cruel to you when you first arrived. I believed gossip instead of giving you a chance. I was wrong." Olivia looked at the woman who had once made her feel so small. She could have held a grudge, could have made Mrs. Patterson feel the same shame she had once inflicted. But that was not who Olivia was. "Thank you for saying that," Olivia replied. "I appreciate it." "You have done well for yourself," Mrs. Patterson continued. "Your children are a credit to you and everyone speaks highly of your teaching. You proved us all wrong." "I did not set out to prove anyone wrong," Olivia said. "I just wanted to live my life." "Well, you have done that, and I am sorry I made it harder than it needed to be." After Mrs. Patterson walked away, Ruth appeared at Olivia's elbow. "That must have felt good." "It did," Olivia admitted. "But also sad. Think of all the years we spent as enemies because she could not see past gossip. What a waste. But you won in the end." "It was not about winning. It was about surviving and then, eventually, about thriving." The celebration continued into the evening, with food and music and dancing. Olivia danced with Dalton, with her sons, with her daughter. She danced with Sam Garrett, who had retired from ranching but still lived nearby. She danced with neighboring ranchers and with fathers of her students. And she laughed more than she had in months, surrounded by people who had become family. As the party was winding down, James sought out his mother. He was 17 now, tall and broad-shouldered, looking more like a man than a boy. "Ma, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. They walked away from the crowd, toward the corral where the horses dozed in the evening light. "What is it, sweetheart?" Olivia asked. "I have been offered a job," James said. "Foreman position at a ranch up in Montana. It is good money, good opportunity, but it would mean leaving." Olivia felt her heart clench, but she kept her voice steady. "What do you want to do?" "I want to take it. I want to see what I can do on my own, make my own way, but I do not want to disappoint you and Pa." "Oh, James." Olivia reached up to cup his face, though she had to reach higher than she used to. "You could never disappoint us. You are growing up, becoming your own man. That is exactly what you are supposed to do. You are not upset. I am sad because I will miss you, but I am also proud. You have worked hard, learned well, and now you are ready for your own life. That is what parents hope for." James hugged her tightly. "I love you, Ma. Thank you for always believing in me." "I always will," Olivia promised. When she told Dalton about James's decision later that night, he took it as she had, with sadness mixed with pride. "He is ready," Dalton said. "We raised him to be independent, to chase opportunities. Cannot fault him for doing what we taught him." "I know. But the house will feel empty without him. We still have Sarah and Thomas, and who knows, maybe there will be grandchildren someday." The thought made Olivia smile. Grandchildren, that seems impossible. Was not I just stepping off that stagecoach yesterday, scared and alone? That was 16 years ago. You have lived an entire life since then. "We have lived an entire life," Olivia corrected. "Together." James left for Montana in the spring of 1894, and the house did feel emptier without him. But he wrote regularly, and his letters were full of enthusiasm and success. He had been promoted twice in his first year and was courting a rancher's daughter he hoped to marry. Sarah, at 15, announced she wanted to attend the teacher's college in Laramie. Olivia helped her prepare applications and write essays, proud beyond words that her daughter wanted to follow in her footsteps. Thomas, at 12, was still finding his way, but he showed an interest in mechanics and engineering that fascinated Dalton. "The world is changing," Dalton said. "Maybe Thomas will be part of that change." Olivia continued teaching, though she had hired an assistant as the school grew larger. She was 40 now, with threads of silver in her auburn hair and lines around her eyes that came from years of smiling. She felt the years in her back and her hands, which sometimes ached from writing on the chalkboard all day. But she also felt blessed beyond measure. She had a husband who still looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. She had children who were thriving, becoming good people. She had work that mattered, a home she loved, and a community that respected her. One afternoon, a young woman appeared at the schoolhouse. She was perhaps 20, thin and nervous, with haunted eyes that Olivia recognized immediately. She had worn that same expression once. "Are you Mrs. Douglas?" the young woman asked. "I am. Can I help you? My name is Margaret. I heard about you from someone in Cheyenne. They said you might understand my situation." Olivia gestured for her to sit. "Tell me." The story that poured out was painfully familiar. A promise of marriage, a betrayal, a ruined reputation. Margaret had been driven from her home and was looking for somewhere to start over. "I heard you went through something similar," Margaret said, "and that you rebuilt your life here. I was hoping maybe you could help me do the same." Olivia reached across and took the young woman's hand. "You came to the right place." Over the next weeks, Olivia helped Margaret find work, a place to live, and most importantly, people who would give her a fair chance. Ruth hired her to help with the laundry, just as she had once hired Olivia. Dalton made sure the men in town knew that Margaret was under the protection of the Douglas family and should be treated with respect. It was not easy. There was gossip, as there always was. But Olivia had influence now, and she used it. When women started whispering about Margaret in the mercantile, Olivia stood up in front of everyone and told her own story, reminding them that judgment without understanding was cruelty. "I came to this town 16 years ago under similar circumstances," Olivia said, her voice carrying through the store. "I was judged unfairly by people who did not know me, but a few good people gave me a chance, and that made all the difference. Now I am asking you to do the same for Margaret. She deserves the same opportunity I received." The speech made an impact. People still talked, but they also gave Margaret space to prove herself. Within months, she had found her footing just as Olivia had. "Thank you," Margaret said one afternoon, visiting Olivia at the schoolhouse. "I do not know what I would have done without your help." "You would have figured it out," Olivia said. "You are stronger than you think, but I am glad I could help. Someone helped me once, and now I can pass it forward." "Did you ever feel like you would be okay again?" "When it first happened, I mean." "No," Olivia admitted. "I felt broken. I felt like my life was over and I would never be happy again, but I was wrong. The hurt faded slowly, and I learned that what happened to me did not define me, neither does what happened to you. I hope you are right." "I am right. Trust me. One day you will be sitting where I am, helping another scared young woman, and you will tell her the same thing. Life does not end when people say it does. It ends when you give up, and you have not given up." As Margaret left, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From damaged goods to respected teacher and community leader. From broken and afraid to whole and confident. From alone to surrounded by love. That evening, walking home from the schoolhouse, Olivia passed through town. She nodded to the shopkeepers, waved to students, stopped to chat with neighbors. These people who had once gossiped about her now greeted her warmly. Some had apologized, as Mrs. Patterson had. Others simply pretended the past had never happened. Olivia did not mind either way. What mattered was the present, and the present was good. At home, Dalton was on the porch, waiting for her as he did every evening. Thomas was inside, working on some contraption he was building. Sarah was at the table studying for her entrance exams. It was ordinary and perfect. "How was your day?" Dalton asked, pulling her into his arms. "Good. Margaret stopped by. She is doing well." "You are a good person, Olivia Douglas." "I am trying to be. You made it easier." "No, you made it possible. I just loved you. You did the hard work of rebuilding yourself." They sat together on the porch as the sun set, painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Olivia leaned against her husband and felt peace settle over her like a warm blanket. "Do you ever miss teaching full-time?" Dalton asked. "Before you had an assistant, sometimes. But I also like having more time for other things. For you, for the children, for helping people like Margaret. You have done so much good in this community." "We have done good," Olivia corrected. "You, me, Ruth. We showed people that kindness matters more than gossip. Still, I am proud of you, of everything you have accomplished." "I am proud of us," Olivia said, "of the life we built together." The years continued to unfold gently. James married his Montana sweetheart and made Olivia a grandmother when they had a son they named Dalton after his grandfather. Sarah went to college and became a teacher, eventually returning to take over the school when Olivia retired. Thomas surprised everyone by leaving for Denver to study engineering, the same city where Olivia's troubles had begun. "Are you worried about him being there?" Ruth asked when Thomas left. "A little," Olivia admitted, "but it is not the same city I left. And he is not the same frightened girl I was. He will be fine." And he was. Thomas thrived in Denver, sending letters full of excitement about his studies and the future of railroads and electricity. The world was changing rapidly, moving into a new century, and her son was part of that change. Olivia and Dalton grew older together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing but their love remaining constant. They sold the ranch eventually, when the work became too much, and moved into a small house in South Pass City. The same town that had once rejected her now welcomed her home, and she spent her days reading, gardening, and visiting with friends. Ruth passed away in 1902, peacefully in her sleep. Olivia mourned deeply for the woman who had given her the first chance, the first kindness. At the funeral, she spoke about how Ruth had saved her life simply by believing in her. "She taught me that judgment without understanding is cruelty," Olivia said, "and that giving someone a chance costs nothing but can mean everything. I would not be standing here today, with this life and this family, without Ruth's kindness. She was the best person I have ever known." Margaret, who had married and stayed in South Pass City, came to Ruth's funeral. So did dozens of other women Ruth had helped over the years. It was a testament to a life well lived, and Olivia hoped that, when her own time came, she would leave a similar legacy. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1909, Olivia and Dalton threw a small dinner party with their children and grandchildren. James and his wife had 3 children now. Sarah had married a fellow teacher and had 2 daughters. Thomas, still unmarried but happy, came home from Denver where he now worked as an engineer for the railroad. 30 years, James said, raising his glass. "To Ma and Pa, who showed us what real love looks like." Everyone drank, and Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. She looked around the table at these people she loved, this family she had built, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Later, when everyone had gone home, she and Dalton sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. 30 years, Dalton said. "Hard to believe." "Best 30 years of my life," Olivia replied. "Even the hard parts, even those. The hard parts taught me how strong I was, and they led me here to you, to this life. I would not change anything, not even the beginning." "The pain you went through," Olivia considered. "I wish it had not happened. I wish that man had been honest and that people had been kinder. But I cannot change the past, and I would not want to if it meant losing what I have now. The past made me who I am, and I finally like who I am. I have always liked who you are, Dalton said. From the first moment I saw you, you saw something in me I could not see in myself. I just saw the truth. Everyone else was looking at you through the lens of gossip and judgment. I just looked at you. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Olivia thought about that terrified girl who had stepped off the stagecoach 31 years ago. She wished she could go back and tell her that everything would be okay, that the pain would fade, that happiness was waiting. But maybe that girl needed to walk that hard road to become who she was now. Maybe there were no shortcuts to wisdom, to strength, to self-acceptance. I love you, she said to Dalton. I love you too, always have, always will. You called me beautiful when everyone else called me damaged. Because you were beautiful, you still are. And you meant every word. Every single word, then, now, and forever. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the cool night air on her face, feeling her husband's hand in hers, feeling at peace with her life and her choices. She had been hurt, yes. She had been judged unfairly, rejected, gossiped about. But she had survived it all. More than survived, she had thrived. She had found love, raised children, taught hundreds of students, helped other women who faced similar struggles. She had turned her pain into purpose, her scars into strength. She had proven that what others said about her mattered less than what she knew to be true about herself. The town had called her damaged goods, but one cowboy had called her beautiful and meant every word. And in the end, his truth had become her truth. She was not damaged. She never had been. She was simply a woman who had loved and lost and found the courage to love again. And that was the most beautiful thing of all. As she sat there with her husband under the Wyoming stars, surrounded by the life they had built together, Olivia finally understood what happiness really meant. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love. Not perfection, but acceptance. Not forgetting the past, but refusing to let it define the future. She had been given a second chance, and she had made the most of it. She had built a life of meaning and purpose and joy. She had loved deeply and been loved in return. She had raised good children who were now raising children of their own. She had made a difference in her community and in the lives of individuals who crossed her path. And she had done it all by simply refusing to believe what others said about her, by choosing instead to see herself through the eyes of someone who truly loved her. That was her legacy. Not just the life she had lived, but the example she had set. That reputation did not have to be destiny. That judgment did not have to be truth. That one person's cruelty did not have to define an entire life. The town had called her damaged goods. But one cowboy had called her beautiful and meant every word. And those words, spoken with love and truth and unwavering belief, had changed everything. They had saved her life. And in saving her life, they had created this beautiful, messy, wonderful life full of love and purpose and joy. A life worth living. A life worth celebrating. A life that proved, beyond any doubt, that the best revenge against those who tried to break you is simply to thrive. And thrive she had.